Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hannah. I am a trauma coach who works with Muslim women. I help Muslim women heal from complex trauma and build a beautiful life ahead of them. If you're a woman who's watching this and are interested in working with me, you can go to the links in my description to learn more about my trauma group coaching program or to get my free webinar on the 3 steps to healing trauma. So this was a video that was asked of me a while back, and I'm finally getting to it. And so I want to start off by saying that this video is specifically for men who are emotionally mature, who have a deep desire to improve their marriage. This is not for men who are, who are intent on being critical or have their own very particular way of how they think a marriage should go. This is for the sake of improving marriage. So if you're someone who is an emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature man who, inshallah, wants to either in the future when they get married see a tremendous amount of growth in, inshallah, barakah in their marriage, or if you are already married and want to improve your marriage, this video is for you. Bismillah. So what can you do to steal your wife's heart? That should be the goal, right? If you are married and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed you to achieve that blessing, you're completing half your deen. We, on both sides of the husband and wife, should want to optimize that. And I already have a whole video dedicated to ladies, if you're watching this, called How to Steal Your Man's Heart. So you should go watch that video. But this is a counter for the brothers. So the first thing that I want to say is speak to your wife like a woman. I have my notes here if you see me looking down. What does that mean? Speak to your wife like a woman. Oftentimes men will come in with the same level of intensity or the same joking manner or nicknames that they use with their friends and use it with their wife. And sometimes some wives will even make it seem like they invite that in because it is friendly and there's connection. But at the end of the day, a woman likes to be spoken to in a different way than a man likes to be spoken to. And so speaking to your wife like a woman means that there's a lot more endearment. There's a lot more soft startups. That means you don't just jump right into the conversation. There are terms of endearment in the sense of nicknames. The Prophet ﷺ used to use nicknames for his wives, right? And also compliments, right? Really kind of using that language of affirmation with your wife is a really important piece because it fills her up. It helps her to build that confidence. Oftentimes, I work with women who are struggling in their marriage and finding themselves sometimes even contemplating divorce. And one of the most front-facing issues they come to me with is the level of criticism that they hear from their husbands. And it's sad because sometimes the husbands think that they're actually trying to improve their wife or improve the marriage, not realizing that the lack of the skill of talking to their wife like a woman is actually causing tremendous damage. And you don't even know that your wife is at the point where she's ready to start calling things off because this is one issue, but obviously other issues are involved in, and this is contributing so significantly to that. So speak to your wife like a woman. Number 2, and this is so important. Do things to make your wife's life easier that she would normally do. There's something about coming to your marriage with this idea of sadaqah, right? When you see the things that you do in your home or for your spouse as a sadaqah. We live in this world where there's a lot of like red pill arguments of like, well, she needs to do this and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go make the money. I'm going to do. And there's such stringent categorization of duties and roles and responsibilities. When you're in a healthy marriage, you realize very quickly that flexibility is a weapon that will make your marriage so much better. And willing to not hold on to such stringency in that way will bring a lot of barakah into your marriage. And that looks like doing things that your wife would normally do, but doing it for her to take things off her plate. And especially if she already kind of took that on and that's, she knows that kind of that's the agreement between you two, you do that. It is something that we appreciate so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it when my husband knows, like, you know, I'm tired or I'm not feeling well, but I have a load of laundry to fold, and then I come in and I see half of it already folded. Or I was planning on doing the dishes in the evening and I see that he already did them. There's something that just, I don't know, it just makes us feel safe and taken care of. And that is what you want your wife to feel like. Because safety and that security are the 2 necessary pieces that your wife has to have to be able to be the best wife that she can be. So Do that. Do it as a sadaqah. Know that everything that you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for. And even if you're tired, right? Even just show that you appreciate her contributions and you want to make things easier on her. The next piece is do an energy inventory before you walk in. What does this mean? If you are coming home from work and you're really stressed out, or you had a phone call on your way home from a family member and you're really stressed out, we don't realize how quickly that stress, anger, frustration gets imparted onto our spouse the moment we walk in. And this is a huge issue when it comes to emotional and nervous system regulation. I talk about this a lot for women, but this is something that every person should have a skill to have. This is something that every person who wants a healthy marriage should be developing. So check where you're coming from when you first walk in. Are you already annoyed and angry? What can you do to manage that before you open the door and before you end up, vomiting your emotions and anger and frustration onto your wife? Especially if there's already something at home that you were frustrated at, or if there was a recent conflict or argument that happened. Next is take care of your looks. I like to give the example of Ibn Abbas, who used to really emphasize that before he walked into his home, he'd make sure his hair was combed, he would have perfume on. He valued his presentation in front of his wife. Oftentimes, this is something we emphasize for women, and even in my previous video on that I did like 3-4 months ago, I don't remember at this point. So a few months ago, I talked about the importance for women to think about this, because Islamically, the husband and the wife are the only ones who are allowed to see each other in that way. But the same applies for brothers. Your wife still wants to see you, looking good, right? She still appreciates that. So put in that effort. There's something it's not just unattractive. It actually makes a woman lose respect when she sees a man who is completely unkempt, not put together. You're wearing ripped or stained clothing. You won't throw out the socks or the boxers that have holes in them, right? It's a very disheartening thing, because it's almost like you're supposed to be the leader and you're supposed to be the provider, and you can't even take care of this very simple, easy thing. It might not make sense to brothers who are, listening to this, but I tell you as a woman, this is a very common issue that I hear about. The next piece is drop the ego. Drop the red pill. If you're getting your advice from podcasts of men who their wives can't even tell you how happy they are, or they have possible domestic violence charges against them, and that's how you're deciding to go into your marriage, instead of thinking, what is a way to truly build a healthy, thriving, happy marriage where we're both connected, we're both at peace, we love each other, we show it to each other, and we're doing what is best for our home, our family, our vision, you're going to be in for a really difficult time. Because this kind of like power struggle that occurs as a result of people trying to demand what their roles and responsibilities are going to be and what the others' roles and responsibilities are going to be, it's like watching children fight. And you guys are husband and wife. You guys are both adults. You both have something special and important and that you bring to the marriage. And of course, there's that delicate balance of masculinity and femininity that has to occur. But it also has to come in a way that comes from healthy leadership, not this like commanding, demanding, you're going to do it or else. And the reason I say this in the way that I do is not because I'm trying to rip on people who had no other guidance and so they went to these formats for advice, but because the prophetic way of navigating a marriage and leading a marriage as a man is so counter to that. The Prophet ﷺ never had to command, demand, and put his foot down in that way. He led in a very intentional way. He was extremely emotionally intelligent. He knew what his wives needed. He knew how to communicate things. And that's who our model is supposed to be. And so if you're trying to reach this goal of a healthy, happy marriage, then why wouldn't you go to the one who has a track record of several happy, healthy marriages, and specifically those were marriages that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sanctions, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, like, this is the type of marriage that you model. So look to that advice. The next piece is really, really helpful, but oftentimes a lot of conflict that comes up is just because we don't fully understand what it is our spouse needs at that moment. And so this is a piece of advice for either a wife or a husband, but it's especially helpful for husbands because the communication between men is very different than the way women communicate with each other. So if something's coming up and you know your wife wants to express something, or you're like, oh God, it's going to turn into another conflict, it's really helpful to ask, what do you need from me right now? Not in the sense of, what do you need from me right now? Like, don't talk to me. But in the sense of, do you need me to listen? Do you need me to give you feedback? Do you want advice or me to help you solve the problem? Do you want validation? What do you need? That way you know exactly what you're coming into, because this always ends up being a huge like dispute that I hear about. All right, I wanted this from my husband, he starts solving the problem, or I wanted him to solve the problem, but he's trying to validate me because he thinks that's what I need. Just ask, and then you know exactly what it is that you're dealing with. It feels weird at first, but it's a major hack. Next is speak presently with your wife and with interest. There's this, situation. I had a client who was dealing with what she felt was a tremendous amount of emotional neglect from her husband. And many people would brush this off and be like, who cares? Like, you guys live together and he pays the bills, and, sometimes you go out and have fun. But she was at her breaking point because she had felt like after so many different times of trying to explain how important it is for her to have that emotional connection, quality time with her husband, it was constantly being disregarded. And the problem is that was her love language, and she wasn't feeling like she was being loved. I'm going to tell you right now, women, are not going to, marriages are not going to sustain when your wife is feeling like she's not being loved, even though you're like, what are you talking about? Of course I love her and I'm doing X, Y, Z. And so one way to go about that is, especially if your wife is a quality time kind of person, is to speak with her presently and be interested. Even if you're not interested, fake it, right? Because that sense of like feeling appreciated and admired is so important in a marriage. And I say this to women too. If your husband is talking to you about something that he's interested in, even if you don't care, even if it's never been, sit there and just at least enjoy the moment of appreciating how excited he is about this specific topic, right? Because you might not always have shared interests, but you can still have an appreciation for this person's interests. So brothers, try to execute that as well. It'll build up a lot of mutual respect and appreciation. The next piece is ask, don't demand. And here's the thing. Emotionally immature, weak leaders demand. Emotionally intelligent, strong, powerful leaders invite and ask, because they know how the human mind works, and especially the feminine human mind. It's more flexible. It needs that flexibility. So be wise, right? There are two types of leaders. There's coercive, and then there's legitimate. If you have to force, this constant forcing your wife to do X, Y, or Z, that just ends up, it comes from a place of resentment. That's not a healthy, happy marriage. But if you're a legitimate leader, you know how to invite it. My husband was talking about this recently. The importance of inspiring the change. That is something that's going to be really, really important for just the longevity of your marriage, and even inshallah when you have children, or if you have children, your children being able to see that. Next is plan things in advance for her, like date nights. So putting in that effort well in advance is really, really helpful. Sometimes people don't think about these things, but I know there are some brothers that are really good about this. But if you don't be the last minute person. You guys realize you are both free that night, and it's like, oh, let's do something. That's okay to do every now and then, but effort is something that is really important for a lot of women to see, and this is one way to show it. Next is say thank you. Say thank you. This is something I mentioned in my other video in terms of women stealing their man's heart. Appreciation, gratitude is so important. The hadith, those who do not thank people do not think of Allah, applies very well here. When you show the appreciation to your wife for things that she does, it makes her want to do more, because appreciation is a magnet. It magnifies and it makes things grow. And so the behaviors that you want to see grow in your wife, show gratitude for them. So she actually knows, oh, this is something he particularly appreciates. This is what I'm going to put my effort and energy towards. Next is do your inner child work. So many brothers, and this is a whole topic on its own, but so many brothers are coming into marriages with their own trauma from childhood, seeing toxic marriages in their parents, thinking it doesn't affect them, and then reliving that same experience in their own marriage. What has happened to you in the past lives with you subconsciously. It is a part of your brain. It is always going to be a part of you. If you have not done the work of healing from that, if you've not done the work of recognizing and healing from it, you are going to repeat it, and then you are going to sabotage because your nervous system is in constant state of fight or flight, and you are not going to be able to have a healthy marriage. If you feel like, oh my God, my marriage all of a sudden is falling apart, or my wife is not happy and I don't know why, this is more than likely the reason why, because you were unconscious of it. You didn't even realize the things that you were doing that were causing harm. So do that work. And the last one that I will mention is, if things are going wrong, you're not doing well, go get help. Go get help. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you guys have already discussed divorce and you're talking about how, who's going to move out where. Do it early. And this is a point where I want to introduce something. And I'm so incredibly excited to introduce this, because I couldn't think of anyone better to be doing this work. But the things that I mentioned in this video did not come from my own head. These are actually things that are inspired by conversations that I've had with my husband, things that my husband does, or the tips and techniques that he actually teaches other men to improve their marriage. And you guys have heard about me talk about this in the past if you are a regular on my channel. But my husband is actually a marriage coach. He's a marriage, premarital, and life coach for Muslim men. And he is currently taking clients. So if you are a brother who, as you were listening to these different pieces, felt like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, or I need support, I need strategies, I need someone to go back and forth with to be able to figure out how to build my marriage to this healthy, nourishing place where it's peaceful and respectful, then working with a coach is so, so powerful. I'm a trauma coach. I know the level of impact and change and joy and peace that can come from working with someone who knows the strategies, who knows the techniques, who can help be your accountability buddy, inspire you, but also give you the feedback that you need and coach you through it. It is truly a game changer. So to the brothers who are watching this, if you are serious about this, you want that, like I mentioned, I will put the link in the description, inshallah, for my husband's calendar and his website for you to see what he offers, what his philosophy around coaching is, what his framework is. It's really cool. It's actually the 5 pillars of prophetic masculinity, and book a call, your first session with him, inshallah. Thank you so much for watching this, and I really hope that it helps your marriages flourish, and that if you are doing that, ultimately that is one of the greatest pleasures to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and will weigh heavily on your scale on the day of judgment. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more.